Welcome to another episode of Sketchy Ideas, the live counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate and debate concepts surrounding leadership, business, personal development, and movies in a way that may make you think twice before you implement that new idea you just found on the internet. Hi, I am Brad James.
And I am Michael Rambola.
And we are your hosts. And today, we're going to show you how to make other people do your blank. But before we dive into that, we're going to give sure. Before we do that, we're going to give a shout out to the organizations powering this show. All right, I'll go first this time because I'm in the mode. Cream City Marketing. Cream City Marketing is an agency that helps small and medium-sized businesses of all sorts develop and implement marketing strategies or tactics to help grow and scale your marketing and sales operations. Ping us at creamcitymarketing.com, and we'll get back to you with some great ideas on how to improve your sales. Over to you.
Very nice. Sketchy Ideas is also powered by Spirity. Spirity helps you overcome your obstacles. One of the obstacles holding you back might just be that you're doing too much, or at least you're not doing enough of the most important things. And if you don't know which is which, we would love to help you on that. Reach out to us, email info@spirity.com, or just hit us up at spirity.com, and we would be excited to help you figure out what you should stop doing. Spirity.
So stop doing everything, right? That's what you're telling me?
You can't
go crawl in a hole? Okay.
I'm not saying you're doing too much, but I am saying you're doing too much. Yeah.
All right. That's okay, because today you're going to share with us how to work smarter, not harder, and find the best route to delegating tasks to somebody else on your team and making sure that they get done to the highest quality possible.
Absolutely right. You know, it's nice because this is, as we've been talking through, this is really a progression. So if you've been following along with our recent 3 or 4 episodes, this is the natural next step. We've talked about identifying who's responsible and who's accountable. Let me even go back before that. We talked about what it means to be a great leader. Then what does it mean to be responsible or accountable, and which one's which? Important differentiator. Last week we talked about processes. Once you've documented your processes, you can get to the point of delegation. And I can't remember if we shared this last week, but I've shared it a lot since last week's episode with a lot of my clients, that documenting your processes and having a plan is like delegating to your future self. So if you can delegate to your future self by making a plan and documenting what needs to be done tomorrow, the next day, the week after, you're ready to start delegating to somebody else. And today we're going to talk about what it means to delegate to somebody else and how to figure out which things need to be delegated and how to do it the right way so that things don't fall through the cracks and the responsible people do it and you, the accountable person, can still sleep at night.
Sleep? Okay. So in other words, you're going to create time for me to sleep.
You can't delegate to sleep. Here's the thing.
Darn it.
I know. Trust me, I've tried. Here's the thing. There's some things that you and only you can do, and that's the royal you or the universal you, right? Each of us, we are the only person who can do certain things, but a lot of the things that we do are things that anybody else could do. If you're busy doing the things that anybody else could do, you have less time to do the things that only you can do, and therefore you're not actually prioritized. You're busy but not productive. And that's the point of figuring out which one's which. See previous points on responsibility, accountability, etc. And that gets us to today, which tells us, okay, now that I know that I'm doing too much, all this still needs to get done. And let me just clarify that. It's not I need to do it all. It does all need to get done. Now, which of the things are yours and which are somebody else's, and that's what we're going to figure out today.
So in other words, if you feel like you're on a hamster wheel that is never ending, and you've done the process work, or at least started to do some of the process work, this is your path to get off the hamster wheel, to at least go get a sip of water, or potentially take that hamster vacation you've been trying to take. Right?
Yeah. Hamster vacation. I like it. Goal.
Yeah.
Goal.
Hamster vacation.
Hamster. Does hamster have a P? No, I don't. No. Hamster. Why did my hamster need a P? Yeah,
because that's how
right.
it sounds that way. I don't think
it should have a
P
P.
in it, though. Yeah.
Hemp,
But it doesn't.
No, that's a different animal. Yeah, so
Like
the goal
stirring the
is a
ham.
vacation.
Yeah. It's spring. We got a little bit of spring fever. Okay.
I love this.
So if we're feeling a little like extra sketchy today, that's why. All right. It's nice outside. We're doing this. We're staying inside. We do this during our lunch break. You know, we mow down some food right before, and then we hop on the video. And so food is on the brain. Spring is on the brain. And also why I can promise you this. This is why delegation for me has become critical, because without delegation, I was running myself ragged, working, 18, 20 hours a day, sleeping 4 hours a day, not eating, not taking care of myself, not those things. Because when you're running a business, all those things have to get done. But the challenge is you sacrifice for a little bit how much of it you're going to do versus how much of it is actually going to get done. And now you start getting to a point, and we're not going to necessarily talk about that today, but we're going to start introducing some people over the course of the next few weeks who are going to be able to help you with some of those delegation of tasks, and maybe help you improve your process so that you actually can make your organization or business more profitable, more efficient, better quality of work, you name it, because it all matters. So with that, I don't want to keep stealing your thunder, but
no, it's great.
so what's step one on, like, when does somebody, Michael, when should somebody really start thinking about delegating anything?
It's like planting a tree. The right answer is yesterday. The second best answer is today. So,
okay.
Right. So here's a technique that we've come up with that I want to teach this one to everybody. This one, I want to make sure you have in mind when something is coming in, a task to be done that you haven't already planned on doing, right? Planning on doing it means in theory, you've already prioritized. But if it's a new thing coming in and you have to evaluate it against your other things, you have to turn it into something else, right? So I call this task triage. All right. So a new task comes in, before just taking action on it, which is what most of us do, you have to triage it. There's 4 options. There's do it now, which is exactly what it sounds like. High priority in Covey's matrix. This would be both urgent and important. There's do it later, which is it needs to be done. It's important, but it's not urgent.
Okay.
Okay. There's delegate it, which is it needs to get done, but not by me. It might be urgent, but not important. And then the other option is I'm just going to use dump it. Dump it, delete it, basically don't do it. Which is counterintuitive that some things just don't get done. But if we're being honest, a lot of things don't get done right now by default. Wouldn't it be nice if you were being intentional and selective about about choosing which things didn't get done?
Yeah, prioritization is critical to running or leading or doing anything. I mean,
you got it.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to kind of break this down a little bit, above the line is you, below the line is others, and then this is like now or next. It needs to get done right now. Sorry, now or later or never. If it's dump it. What I find is when I teach this technique, people are like, I get it. But then something will come in and they'll kind of drop it in the middle and they'll decide where it goes and they can't figure out where it goes. Because, It could be now, it could be later, it could be me, it could be somebody else. And that's where there's actually another step, which is a pre-step. And I have to give credit to my colleague, Sandy Rice, who came up with this idea, which is deconstruct it. If it's not clear where it goes, it's too big. You need to break it down. So pull it kind of back out, turn it into smaller parts, and then feed each of the smaller parts through the triage machine. There's your process, by the way. And then you'll know which one of these 4 things it falls into. I can't tell you how many leaders it's a 7-step process and they only need to do number 4. But they do 1 through 3 and 5, 6, and 7 because they have to do number 4. And they never thought about breaking the thing down. It's the de facto, I have to do the whole thing because my signature is needed. Self-aware, Brad. because my signature is needed on this line. And so therefore the whole thing is mine. Nope, that's not true. You got to sign off on it, but that doesn't mean you need to fill in the form, create the thing, run the report. You need to look at the report, but you don't need to be the one that populates it and runs it and turns it into actionable items, right? So breaking things down, the deconstructed is probably the magic. If I'm going to give you a little bit of magic, the magic of delegation and prioritization comes in breaking it down, deconstruct it, because you're doing too much because you haven't thought about things in more discrete terms.
Makes sense. I mean, and that's for the thing is, I mean, we've talked about project management in the past, right?
Yep.
Like that's a critical step if you're doing waterfall, Scrum, Agile, Six Sigma. I mean, it falls into all that stuff. So again, back to what we were talking about last week and previous weeks, like take the time to break things down, keep it simple. Big fan of the KISS rule. My father reminds me of it all the time, you know, and my name is stupid.
I'd
so,
say
you know, we'll just go with that.
Second S. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, this all makes sense. So, all right. So if we've got this framework, we've got, okay, deconstruct it, do it later, do it now, delegate it, dump it.
Yep.
How without overcomplicating it, how are people segmenting to each of those things? I mean, I'm sure you coach people through that, right? But if we just get the basics of prioritizing this stuff, right? And then being able to, with our process that we're working on from last week, in that whole thing, that's very simple. By taking that, how are you helping with your clients? Do you work through, hey, let's figure out which one of these are actually do it later versus do it now, or dump it versus delegate?
Absolutely. And if I'm going to give some general guidelines, a lot of the 80-20 rule comes in here, right?
Okay.
Whereby what you need to do now should be a smaller thing. Like if you're going to aim, this should be 20% of the things that you actually decide to do. And 80% should be that. What it means is there only should be a couple burning, like really hot burning fires, ideally. And if I take it one level up, you should only be doing 20%. This should be a 20% of what comes into your wheelhouse. And 80% should be, I'm not doing it or somebody else should be doing it or shouldn't be done.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Take your email inbox. Email inbox is a great place to start. And I'll give points over to people who are much better at managing email inboxes. I'm going to plug Jennifer Buchholz here, who has a whole class just about inbox management. And the point is, and the way I learned it is this: an email is an envelope. An email is not a thing; it's a container for a thing. And until you open that email, you don't know what it really is. But once it's opened, you got to do something with it. See task triage. And So if you look at your average inbox, 80% of what's in your average inbox is below the line. Don't do it, or is for somebody else to do. Which leaves a small percent of priority. And then even within that sense of priority, you got to figure out what's the most high value add stuff. Now, good in theory, good concepts, but like most of life, this is best figured out backwards. What I mean by that is try it and you got to check your results and figure out and learn and get better. It's very iterative.
So for those of you who feel like this,
very nice.
This is what your thing is. If you don't know what that is, any thoughts? You know what that is?
That appears to be a dumpster on fire. Is that a dumpster on fire?
Yes, it is. Hey, I've been working on my art. So so
the color,
feel like your
delegate.
If this is what you feel like this process is to you right now because you don't have process and you're struggling to prioritize, like listen, okay? I have felt this way for years, okay? It wasn't until I began to actually take the time, you know, as a leader and as a manager, this is where you developing and leading the charge by taking the time for yourself to figure things out like this translates down the food chain or down to your team if you begin doing it. So if we're looking at it and you literally got a dumpster fire, take 15 minutes every day and go through this process that Michael's talking about here. I mean, it doesn't have to take forever, right?
No, and that's just it. It's start small. I was just talking with somebody yesterday about your idea, Brad, about how do we document processes. And I told her about documenting process, and I could see her eyes getting as big as saucers. And at one point, she finally just said, "So how much more work are you asking me to do?" And I said, "Let's back the truck up." I said, "Would it be okay with you if I lowered the bar right now?" She said, "I would love for you to lower the bar." I said, "So let's do that." So I said, "All right. Yeah, I'd love that." I said, "Let's lower the bar." I said, "Start broad, then do second tier. But if you start building down through 7 layers of detail on the first pass, right, that's why it feels big. Start broad and get more refined. Same thing here. First pass, put it into the 4 categories, make it a guess. If you get there and you realize I could have deconstructed that, then you'll know for the next time. And you'll know for the next time. And over time, you'll make it smaller and smaller and smaller and find which part is really yours and which part can be somebody else's. You're not going to get this right the first time. You're going to fight the wrong fires, and that's okay as long as you have a process to circle back and learn from it.
Yes. And I think that's the part that as you're figuring out delegation, right? This is a practice. This isn't like a one-time thing. Right. And I think people, again, this goes back to the perfection of things that people are trying to fulfill consistently. And you got to remember, none of this is perfect. There isn't a single company out there that has perfected every single process or even any process, right? Even the companies that we look to and go, hey, these are the best and all this stuff. I mean, if you follow anything that comes from, Amazon, Elon Musk, they're constantly iterating because there's always a better way to do it. And, Warren Buffett even talks about this, right? And that guy's been doing investment for a while and he continues to iterate. It's the same principles, but you're going to continue to iterate and get better at it. So it's a long-term investment to do it, but it all depends on whether or not you want to begin figuring it out now, or if you want to stay on the hamster wheel and not go on those vacations. So, all right. So you've got this whole delegation, this next step. So we start delegating. What's next? How do we know that this is working?
Well, you'll know it's working when you're getting the results that you want. And let me clarify what that means. You need to set up front, back to leader, number one responsibility of a leader, make sure people have what they need. Number one thing that they need is clear expectations. The same thing goes for delegation. If you have clear expectations around the things you are delegating, you are much more likely to get the results that you're looking for. But if you haven't stopped to figure out what is it that I really want to see on the end of this, you're going to be really disappointed by your delegation because you haven't actually defined for yourself what it is that you want to see. Brad, have you ever seen that? Somebody says, yep, this isn't really what I wanted. Did you know what you wanted when you started? No, but it wasn't this. Well, then how am I supposed to be successful at delivering the desired outcome if you don't even know what it was?
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes back to everything, right? Last week we talked about what's the end deliverable, work backwards. We've talked about vistas in the past, vision and intent, right? Like at the end of the day, here's the challenge. If you're a leader and you're doing this, and this happens in marketing and sales, all of this stuff, the people know what they don't want more than they know what they do want. So your job is to add clarity specifically when you're delegating things. So I suppose you're going to tell us a little bit more about how to do that right now, either leveraging one of the other frameworks or.
As a matter of fact, I am. As a matter of fact, I am. Here's the first part. Here's the first framework of delegation. The first framework of delegation is that you are delegating 2 things whenever you delegate. You're delegating the process and the results. However, you can only delegate one or the other. When you're delegating, you have to say, I care more about the process than the results, or I care more about the results than the process. There's a little bit of a spectrum, but you can't have 100% of both. If you had 100% of both, you'd be doing the work yourself. But if I'm going to delegate, I have to say to the person to whom I am delegating, these are the results I'm looking for. And here's a general idea about the process, but I care less about that than the results. Or you must follow this process. There's legal ramifications. There's other implications that I can't explain to you right now, but I need you to do it exactly this way. And I care less about exactly what the results are when we're done. Because initially, sorry, thank you. Initially is correct. Over time, we're going to get there, which takes us to part 2. Thank you. Is that there are actually 5 levels of delegation. And each of those is moving a progression from process to results or to autonomy and authority. Let me add that other piece here. Autonomy and authority. At level 5 delegation, I am giving you both full autonomy and full authority over what gets done and how it gets done, and really almost to the point of what the results are. But you don't start at level 5. This is the thing that I see happen when people say, I don't like delegating. Last time I delegated, it didn't work. And so I had to do it all, take it all back and do it all myself. My guess is that you started at too high of a level because you weren't ready to delegate truly, because you probably tried to control both the process and the results. So the person doing the work felt hamstrung and couldn't be successful and would never make you happy because you didn't know what it was you really wanted as an outcome, right? It takes time to think through all this. My suggestion is, when in doubt, start at a level lower than you think you should. And all the way down to level 1. Right. Let me give you level 1 because level 1's easy. Level 1 looks like this. Do this thing exactly this way and tell me when you are done. And that's it. I'm handing you a manual, run the manual and tell me every time you get done with the process. Right. That's level 1. And the point is to tell somebody that they're at level 1, because otherwise it doesn't feel like they're getting delegated much. It's like, why are you just telling me exactly what to do? Because you've never done it before. You've never done it before, and the process matters. I need you to learn the process. And here's the art of delegation. The art of delegation is when I start to introduce the concept of other levels. When you get to this point, you get to move up a level. And at that point, I'm going to care less about the process because you're starting to show me that you can follow the results. Then it'll be something more like, go run the process and let me know if there are any problems. But I'm going to generally assume that everything's going well. So as you get more higher and higher up in the levels of delegation, autonomy, and authority, the other person is getting more and more responsibility. You're doing a whole lot less work and you're upgrading your talent, because that's really the point here. Not only are you freeing up your time for your own priorities, you're making everybody else better. Like the opportunity here is to, if you have a team around you, like, I can't delegate anything, anybody's stuff keeps falling apart. This is a go slow to go fast. Ramp down your delegation effort in a sense, go back to basics. You might go quickly through levels 1, 2, 3 and get to 4. And by the time you get to level 4, you now actually have more time to do more of the more important stuff. And your team feels awesome.
It's like a 5-speed car. It's like a 5-speed car.
Yeah. You start at 5 from the line. No, you're going to break something. At least I think so. I don't know.
Transmission's blown.
One time I tried to learn, my sister tried to teach me manual transmission once. She ended up having to get out of the car and sit on the curb. I was making her so car sick. I've never actually got back into to fix it. My sister, by the way, younger than me, her first car, she intentionally chose a manual transmission so she would have to teach herself how to drive stick. Like, talk about somebody with goals and aspirations. So Jenny, thank you. And I'm sorry for the incident where you tried to teach me how to drive stick.
Hey, shout out. I believe your mom's watching today. So she's already complimented.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. So anyway, so level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. All right. So here's the deal with this whole thing. If you approach this when you're delegating with level 1, I'm a big fan of telling the people who I'm working with, if there's a process in place, trust the process. Trust the process, run the process. Trust the process, run the process. Trust the process, run the process. And I know for a fact that Brian Omig, who helps us out here, is very appreciative when I give him a process to start with, because then there's actually some baseline and there's a floor. And when that happens, now we at least know when things go wrong, or if he has questions, he's able to either refer to that guidelines or we're able to improve on the process. So here's the deal. If you recall, I believe it was I'm drawing a blank. Last week, we talked about steps of training and improvement once that process was trained. Now you're building that into your whole system of developing processes over time. But if you're not delegating, your process only works for you for the rest of your life.
And that is a surefire way to burn out, because now you're the only one who can do it.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, Heidi says you driving an automatic transmission was always a little sketchy too.
She's right.
I don't know what this is. I don't know what we've opened up.
We won't. Oh my. Thanks, Heidi. You're not wrong. Here's the thing about. Okay, whatever you were just saying before, I got to get back. You're talking about probably doing too much. What were you saying?
If you're not delegating the process that you're building, that process will still be a limiting factor to you. So process and delegation go hand in hand. And so understand, with these tools and this framework that Michael's laying out for you, understand that if you're constantly documenting process, and as you consistently document process and get to a point where that end goal, that vision, that intent, the results, that authority and autonomy piece that you own every day becomes clear, because now you are able to clearly define what your expectations are, either in the words that you're giving when you're delegating, or by giving whomever you're delegating to examples of things that you're looking for, right?
Yes.
Because now they can base things off of that, rather than going, well, Brad told me to draw a dumpster fire and it looks like mine, when I actually want a masterful piece of art, just like Van Gogh might draw. And that's where these things come into play. Okay. So levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at the comments popping up.
Good.
Anyway, doesn't matter.
Love it. I love it. We got into Michael's driving. Note for future. You ever want the audience to jump in? Talk about their experiences in my car, apparently, which is funny because let me go. So, because I was actually going to do a driving metaphor, so I got to lean all the way into it now because why not? I once got this feedback from a manager of mine, and I thought it was fantastic. He said, "Michael, you build." We were talking about building training and designing programs. And he said, "You build beautiful cars that only you can drive." So beautiful cars, everybody loves them, but you're the only one who can drive them. What you're designing is not scalable, basically. Because I was designing these advanced, training programs and these very, interactive experiential learning things that were very subtle in the way that they had to be done. They'd be done right. And everybody loved them. Yep. But then I was the only one who could do them. And that is not scalable. It means that we only as many as I can run are the ones that we can do. So delegation, your ability to delegate something and give up maybe that extra 10% magic for what good looks like and what success looks like is how you grow and scale. If you can't delegate, if you are building cars that only you can drive, or you're the only one who knows how to do it, that's not scalable. It's barely growable because you only have so much capacity. You have to give up a little bit of the magic and the part that makes people wonder, how you did that. Bring that down just enough to be growable and scalable. And if you don't care about growing or scaling and you want to stay on said hamster wheel and you don't like vacations, don't worry about this. But if you ever want to take some time off and have your business actually produce revenue without you running it yourself, you got to give up a little to get that opportunity. That's delegation.
Yep. Yeah. So with that, I know we're out of time, but hopefully if you're watching this and you're struggling to delegate, you obviously have somebody here who can, in Michael, who can help you figure out how to implement things like this and coach you through it. He's helped me. I've helped a lot of other people with the same idea and framework. And once you start doing it, it becomes a lot easier, okay? And this is the best way to help make other people do your family show. So I can't say those things. But yeah, exactly. Literally family show today. Love it. I hope all of you come back again next week so we can rib Michael a little more. But we also are hoping to have somebody very special on next week's show who's going to help expand upon this and give some different ideas on maybe from the, like if I delegate to somebody who that I'm the delegator, the delegatee will give some information on how it's best to work with those types of individuals.
Nice.
And that's what they do. So we're hoping, teaser, next week, that we're going to be able to have this individual on here to help with that. And that way it'll give you different perspective, because as a leader, you need to be able to have perspective when you're doing this. And it will definitely help you to make sure you're refining your own process. So with that, I think we're going to sign off, mostly because I'm scared to make Michael feel worse about his driving. Just kidding. Always like to add some humility to our personalities, because humility is the path. But but if you have questions on this, hey, send us an email, info@sketchyideasshow.com. Find us on your favorite podcast syndicate. If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends, comment on it, add questions underneath the videos, and we will expand upon those things. We are definitely going to have some really special guests coming on in the future. So we really want to make sure that we're getting questions before and after, but also with that, we want to make sure that you're coming back next week to the live show, because when there are people engaging like there are today, it is way more fun. And the more people we have and the more commentary we have, like Michael's mom coming on and sharing her experiences, it always makes things more fun. So come back next week when we dive further into process, delegation, etc. And we'll share some more little bits of knowledge next week. And just remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. We'll see you next week. Take care.